This podcast contains material that is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all listeners. Enjoy.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin. So let's get rowdy and reckless. Let's get rowdy and reckless. Let's get rowdy and reckless. Just for the hell of it. Just for the hell of it.
Hello and welcome back to yet another edition of Old Man Strength. I am Tim Johnson, joined as always by Chris Shipley. Chris, how are we doing this evening?
Exhausted. I'm exhausted from my trip.
Yeah, so for those of you who listened to us the last episode, we were getting into the Iowa State football season, but this was before the Iowa State in Vegas game. Chris, you had a little bit of an adventure getting back from Las Vegas. Apparently, when they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, that means Chris Shipley stays in Vegas, huh?
I stayed in a little longer than I needed to, that's for sure.
So what the hell happened?
Oh, man. It was so much of a shit show. Here's what happened. Here's the problem. First of all, I am not as tech savvy as I am when it comes to airplanes and traffic and like booking flights. I'm terrible. I get anxiety. I don't do it very often. I still go to the counter and check in so I can get the paper ticket.
Yeah, we talked about this last time, I think, about how nervous you were. Not that you're afraid of flying, but just because you're an old man who thinks that you need to get something hand punched by like a cabbie in a hat, like you're right. Yeah. So
we booked these flights. I think we did it in February. I think I did it through Expedia. Again, I've learned so much since then, but so I chose a flight going on American and coming back on Frontier. That's the first mistake. Two different airlines, right? So that was my first mistake.
Well, especially because the second airline is barely an airline.
Right. Well, at the time, I did not know that. But by doing that, we got a really pretty good deep discount on the hotel. So, I mean, overall, the cost of the trip was pretty affordable for us.
Sure. But
at the time, Staci was going to be teaching, and we were going to try to leave Thursday evening so that she didn't have to take an extra day off of work.
Yep.
So the only flight we could find on Thursday so that we would have all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and come home on Monday was an afternoon flight that took off at 4:00 in Des Moines and flew to Charlotte. And then from Charlotte...
That's the opposite direction to Vegas, by the way.
I'm aware. And then from Charlotte to Las Vegas. But since that was the only time that we could go, and that was the only flight, I booked it.
Sure.
But then I was able to book a direct flight. Then I was able to book a flight coming home on Monday that would fly into Denver, stay in Denver for a couple hours, and then fly home to Des Moines. So we were all set. So then, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months later, I get an email from American. They changed the flight times on that departure flight from Des Moines to 11:50 during the day. So I had to let Staci know, and she's like, "Okay, well, I'll just take the day off." Well, then I'm like, "Okay, well, if I got to fly out during the middle of the day, I don't really want to fly to fucking Charlotte."
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go look to see if I could change that flight, and sure enough, at that point the flight prices were outrageous.
Oh yeah,
so I was
for
like,
sure.
Okay, we'll just fly to Charlotte. A week later, I get an email from Frontier. They changed the Frontier flight. We were still leaving on Monday, but we were landing in Denver at like 5 p.m. And then our flight home wasn't going to happen until the following Tuesday, the next day at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, we can't spend 12 fucking hours in Denver. Like that doesn't, it was,
but I mean, that's Frontier. They have to like build a plane from scratch in between flights because the balsa wood falls apart after the last flight.
So immediately I called Staci. I'm like, well, that's not going to work because you can't take another day off and we're not spending a night in Denver. That's just not going to happen. So then we decided we were going to cut our vacation short, and I was able to find a flight on Frontier for Sunday that was straight through. Mm-hmm. So I booked it for Sunday. Well, then, I don't know, about a month later, I got an email from Frontier that I had these credits, and I couldn't figure out what they were for. By the way, FYI, as shitty as their airline is, their email communication is that much bad because the email didn't tell me what my credit was. It just said you had a credit and to click this link to redeem it. So then I was like, I don't know what this credit is. So I clicked on it. Well, as I'm floating around, I see that they've now re-added a flight to Monday. That's a direct flight from Vegas to Des Moines at 3:15, and I'd get home at 8 o'clock at night. And it was, after all said and done, it was only going to cost me $40 to change that flight. So I was like, well, fuck, I'll just change it so that we can have our all-day Sunday.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's all done. And every once in a while I would go in and I would look at the app and I'd be like, I don't know how that worked. But I mean, it's there, it's got the right dates, so it must have worked. You know, that was my anxiety of, did I fuck something up? Am I flying now into Alaska and I don't really realize it? I mean, sure. You know. So we get to Vegas. It's great. And, you know, we can talk about all that. But then, so Monday, we check out of the hotel at about 11. We drive over to the airport because we don't have anything else to do. And we would have to check in by like 1 o'clock anyways. By the way, checked in on my phone, had my tickets on my phone. I navigated that. Turns out it's much more simpler than I thought. So I don't need the paper tickets. I don't need the paper tickets. So I've evolved. So we get through TSA.
Sure.
We get in line to get some lunch. We finish lunch. We walk over to our gate. It's about 1:15, 2 hours before our flight. We sit down at the gate. We haven't sat down 5 minutes. And here comes the announcement. Flight 1958 to Des Moines has been canceled. Did she just fucking say canceled? Mm-hmm. And everybody around us is like, what? So
yeah. I mean, no, I had friends going through the same thing, and I was like, you know, a cancellation before you get to the airport is one thing, but when you're literally just sitting there.
So I walk up and I say, I'm sorry, what flight did you just cancel? And she goes, the flight to Des Moines. Why? Well, we don't know, but you'll have to go back downstairs and go back to the ticket booth and then they'll make arrangements for you. Okay. And there's probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 people there that have, because it was still 2 hours before the flight. So there wasn't a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So then we get downstairs and everybody gets in this line and we're all waiting. We're all wondering what's going on. And pretty soon this person from Frontier is walking down the line and talking to people, and you can see people getting visibly pissed off in the line.
Yeah.
And they walk over. And this one lady walks over to us and goes, unless you want to go home on Thursday, they fucking can't help you. And I was like, what? Yeah, they're offering to fly everybody back out of here Thursday. That's their next available flight.
Oh, my God.
Thursday. So then now, and while I was waiting in line, I had a sneaky suspicion we weren't going to get a flight. So I was on my app and I looked at Southwest and saw a flight for Southwest. But I told Staci, I go, I don't know what to do here because I don't know what they're going to try to do if they give us, vouchers and we got to use those. So then as soon as that lady said that, I went to go refresh the app and that flight from Southwest got full.
Sure.
Well,
because everyone was doing the exact same thing.
Right. So I instantly get on and I look at Allegiant and I find a flight at Allegiant that is flying at 4 o'clock straight through. So I'm fumbling in there. And I'm trying to go so fast to type this shit in there because I don't know if sometimes if you like buy something and you put it in a cart, it'll give you like 8 minutes to finish your purchase, for tickets or something like that. Hell, I don't know if somebody else is trying to book these same 2 seats, because I chose the seats. I'm trying to type in my name. I'm putting Stacy's name in there. I mistyping everything. At one point I swiped up to do something and lost the whole fucking screen and had to find it. So I finally booked it. I got it booked. $750. It was an asshole pucker in a moment.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But to Stacy's point, we were lucky enough that we had, we had the funds and it wasn't. So then we had to go back through TSA, go through another whole. Oh, let me back up. I bought my friend Tim a souvenir, right? And it was this, those cups that you put in the refrigerator or in the freezer and it's got the liquid in it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one looked like beer, like a beer mug with beer in it because he doesn't drink beer. So, but he's always got to drink like his hard drinks out of a glass. So I was like, I'm going to get him this because then it makes him at least feel like a man, like he's drinking beer. I go through the first TSA check through, not a problem. I go through the next TSA check through, they flag my bag. Sure. And they open it up and they're like, you can't have this. You can either check this bag or you can toss it in the garbage. Are you fucking kidding? I just went through the other TSA and they allowed it.
Yeah. It's amazing how many times that happened to me on my Santa Cruz trip the other week, where something got flagged on the way out to Santa Cruz. And TSA was ready to throw it when another TSA agent came by and handed it to me and just goes, just keep walking. Because the line was so bad. And then on the way back, it wasn't a problem at all. And I wanted to be like, why did it get flagged on one and not the other? That feels kind of dumb.
I was like, it's clearly a gift. And she's like, well, and I was like, I guess you can fucking throw it in the garbage then. So she tossed it in the garbage and I walked out and I was like, motherfucker. So then we ended up getting on the plane and getting home about 10 o'clock, but man, I was fine the first couple of days home, but today I've been exhausted today, just tired from all that. Mm-hmm. But it was a great trip. It was a trip that Stacy and I needed. It was the first trip that Stacy and I had taken in 10 years without the kids. And funny side note, Ken Miller was there and he texted me. So I met him at the stadium and took a picture and talked to him for a little bit. And I said, what do you know? I said, what do you know, Ken? I finally made it to Vegas to an event with somebody from a radio station.
If any of you listeners do not get that joke, please go back and listen to our episode with Ken Miller. Oh my God, that was a fantastic joke.
That was so good. He laughed.
Oh, I'm sure he loved that one. God, that's funny. They clearly were not prepared for the Cyclone tailgate because when they had a I guess the Luxor and Mandalay Bay have like a tailgate before every home football game for the Raiders and stuff in this little area, and they have it before the UNLV games. It started at 3:30. We were in line at 3:15. The line was gigantic to get in. By the time they opened the gates and we got in and I got in line for beer, I waited 30 minutes for beer. It was one guy behind. I mean, every little booth only had one guy, and he was doing mixed drinks as well or beer. Credit card machine only. By the time I got to the line, they were already out of Busch Light. And I didn't want to wait in line anymore. So I didn't know what the price of the beer was. So I was like, I'll just take 6. And the guy's like, okay, that'll be $82. And I was like, holy fuck, $82. Yeah. That's what's funny is like I got used to even just like the difference between here in Minneapolis proper and out to the suburbs. I went out to the suburbs the other night and had dinner and drinks, and I was like, holy shit, I spent a third of what I would have, 6 miles north. So I can't even fathom. Well, especially because, like, when you usually go out to Vegas, it's like casino or drinks or, whatever, especially with the idiots, degenerate gamblers that I roll with. But $82 for 6 beers.
Yeah, that was a little insane.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, Staci and I had a wonderful time. I just couldn't. That was the first time I've ever got to go to something like that. Like, I've never went to a bowl game where where everybody's been there or whatever. So it was a new experience for me. I loved it. It was super cool. I had a lot of people reach out to me on Twitter wanting to hook up and meet, and I met some great people from Twitter and some great listeners, and
some other Tailgate Society members as well, right? We should
and Sean had some beers with them. I didn't catch Nicole or Jacqueline; they were too busy. Travis whirled on by. Saw Travis, and then hooked up with a couple of our guests. I met, like I said, I met Ken.
Mm-hmm.
I got to meet George Strice. We hooked up at halftime.
Oh, fantastic! That's awesome.
And talked it out for a little bit, and he had a good fundraiser for the golf trip that he had a couple weeks ago. And it was great. So my wife was a little creeped out that so many people wanted to meet me. She was like, because she doesn't get the whole Twitter thing, right? Like, you're on Twitter, and I mean, are they? They're just people that you kind of get to know in a weird sense of way, Right. Jeremy Moore, who is on Twitter, sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, I'm sitting over here at Cabo Wabo." It was like Friday afternoon. He's like, "Why don't you come over and we can have a couple of drinks?" So me and my group went over there and met him, and he bought drinks, and we hung out for an hour or so before we went to dinner, and he got to know my friends and I got to know him. Turns out he lives in Clive, so we're probably going to hang out at some point. But in Jordan, this one guy was in line for beer, right? So this is a pretty good story. I'm in line for beer, and this guy with a big bushy beard, and he's got this Hawaiian shirt on, and his stomach's all hanging out, and he keeps pointing at me and waving. And I was like, I don't know who this fucking guy is. So I ignored him. So then we were walking around. Pretty soon we walked by again. He walked over and he goes, "Hey," he's like, "That probably was a little weird, but I'm Jordan from Twitter." And I was like, "Oh my God, okay, now I know who you are." So then we had a couple drinks and hung out. But it was kind of funny because I was like, I think that guy knows who I am, but I don't know who he is, and he keeps pointing at me, and it's frankly a little creepy.
Yeah, no, that's funny. When you see someone that you should know. Well, it's weird because, like you said, Twitter's one of those things where you know people but you don't know them, and so then, like, the real life thing, even someone like you might know intimately, like, it's still weird to see it in real life.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then, yeah, like you said, Staci doesn't do the whole Twitter thing. Does she even listen to the podcast?
She claims she does every once in a while, but she's super busy. So
I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't blame her if she doesn't. I'm not.
Every
I'm not
once in a
asking
while,
because
I'll
I'm here to
flip something in a podcast, and then I'll see if she listens. It's like that whole thing about. It's kind of like that whole ruse with the quarterback that got drafted for the Raiders the same year as Brady Quinn for the Browns. He played for LSU. You know who I'm talking about? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name. I don't know who you're talking about. Yeah.
But he got. They like gave him a bunch of DVDs to go home and watch, and told him to pick out his 15 best favorite plays, so that they could go over them in practice, and they would implement them into the game plan. And the next day he came in and he was like, they were like, "What plays did you like?" He's like, I'm good with all of them, Coach. I like them all, Coach." Turns out they put $100 bill in the case, and it was still in there when he brought it back because they clearly knew that he didn't watch it. It's kind of the same thing. I'll slip something in on one of these podcasts, and then if I don't get a reaction after it relaunches, then I know she didn't really listen.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, well, good. I'm glad you got to go meet some people that you hadn't met before. I'm glad that you and Staci got away. You mentioned it is the This was kind of your first trip, just you guys in a while. You guys are now settling into being empty nesters.
Yeah.
How's that feeling?
The evenings are a little different. It's an adjustment. The boys, especially Caitlin's been gone for, a few years,
Mm-hmm.
but she's been home during the summer, and Taylor's been off and on, been gone. But, for the last 10 years, we've pretty much had every dinner at the dinner table with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's, you make a big meal and whatever, still adjusting as to what to even make for dinner. And do we even make something, and do we eat leftover,
that is the weirdest thing, is like just two people, like cooking for two is almost a little weird, honestly.
Well, and the weirdest thing is we I don't know why, it's not a conscious thing that we did on purpose, but we always just sat at the dinner table. I think it was partially me. It was more me that I grew up that way, and she did too, that it just kind of gave us a chance to sit and all be together and talk about our day, as traditional as it was, right? And we did that for the longest time, and to the point where when there would be times that we didn't do it, the kids were like, are we not eating at the dinner table? Can we eat at the dinner table?
My daughter is the same way. Like, unless we're going to like be watching a movie or whatever. Because like even in the morning, like I remember, when I was a kid, I would wake up in the morning and I would eat my cereal, my King Vitamin, or my Raisin Bran wherever there was like a free spot at the table in the morning. But like my daughter has like her one spot that she always sits at, and every morning for breakfast, or on the weekends if she's home for lunch or at dinner, she's sitting in the exact, like it's become very much a ritual for her. So I totally get that.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's kind of where I was going with it, is now that the kids aren't home, it feels kind of silly for me to sit on clear end of the other end of the table, and Staci sits on the other end. So, but I've kind of defaulted and moved, and she still sits at the head of the table, and now I sit on the side because I don't want to. It's just awkward to sit clear on the other end.
I love the idea of
you
guys
at I find myself sitting on the side, and I'm going, I guess I know who runs the family around here, because I'm the one that moved, and she's still at the head of the table.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, we all knew that already. I like the idea of you guys sitting at opposite ends of the table with like a single lit candle in between you, as you like both just slurp soup. like there's just something about that. But I mean, it's not just that you guys have an empty dinner table, but I mean, you guys were spending a lot of time caring for the boys, activities, all of those type of things. Is it something where, do you feel like there's any more of a relaxing? Do you feel like there's something missing, or are you just?
I think there's something, for me, there's something missing. I mean, I miss having people in the house.
Sure. Is it quiet?
It's quiet. Although the boys were always up in their room.
Sure.
In the evening, but they would come down. I don't miss the absolute disaster that the kitchen is when I would come down in the morning after we would go to bed, and then they would, tear the kitchen up and eat a bunch of stuff. I don't miss that.
Yeah.
I don't miss the laundry, but just the little things, them coming in and saying goodnight before we go to bed, them getting Bubba all wound up. They would, every night the boys would come in and then want to play with Bubba and get him all wound up. And then I'd be like, you could have played with the dog for the last 2 hours. I'm ready to go to sleep now, so get out.
Mm-hmm.
Just things like that. But it's funny because when we moved the boys in, Josh had a pretty rough time. He really was having a hard time adjusting.
Mm-hmm.
And lately he's been pretty good, to the point where I think the first night that he didn't call at all, Staci was like, Josh didn't call me. And I think she was just just kind of sad about it.
Sure.
But
I'm sure it's bittersweet, right?
Yeah. happy that he didn't have to call.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
much more happier that he didn't have to call because that meant he was having a better night. But
You want to be wanted, but you also want to not be needed type of.
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And they have some friends there, I think, that they're really starting to get with and hang out with, and that's good. So, but yeah, I think the weird thing is just like after dinner, like, what do we do? Well, we.
Oh shit! It's just the two of us. We have to talk to each other.
Right. I mean, honestly, there'd be a time, we'd watch TV or whatever, but she was probably up 4 or 5 times, going up and swapping laundry or whatever, or the boys would need something, or
getting
helping
things ready for the next day, or yeah.
Whereas now, when the boys aren't here and I'm working from home, I'm doing the laundry during the day. So by the time she gets home and I've already made dinner, other than picking up the dinner dishes, our nights are free.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll try to go for a walk, or we'll maybe go do some shopping or whatever. Or, tonight we just kind of hung out on the couch and watched TV or whatever. But we're trying not to go out to eat as much, but that has failed.
Well, it is tough when there's just two, because I found this when I remember years ago as a bachelor, like I used to always say like there should be bachelor bread or things like that. Like almost nothing is 1 to 2 servings that you buy in a grocery store, and even if you buy to bake or whatever, it's still hard to make something that isn't going to give you leftovers, but then by Wednesday you already have a fridge full of leftovers.
Yeah.
Right. And man, I like last weekend I ate like leftover spaghetti and leftover like chicken stir fry thing and a leftover mac and cheese, like all these leftovers. But then like, okay, so that was like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's like Saturday. It's like I already ate the meals I cooked, and now I'm already eating the leftovers. I'm already sick of all of this. I want to just go, grab a burger somewhere or grab a pizza somewhere or whatever. Like, it's just 10 times easier when there's more and more food because there's less people to help you. You're not getting eaten out of house and home, and now you have more food and you're sick of it quicker.
Yeah. Because it's hard to adjust how much you're making.
Yeah. No,
like,
for sure. For sure.
I'll buy, especially if we make chili or something like that. We made chili, I don't know, like last week or something. I think I ate it for like 4 days in a row, whether it was for lunch, and then we didn't want to cook, so I just ate that for dinner, and then I ate it for lunch the next day, and whatever. But
and you had 2 teenage boys, and they weren't big boys by any means, but they still ate more than you would expect. That's enough food going out that you're not accounting for. You probably didn't realize how much they ate until they left.
My dad used to joke that I would eat him out of house and home, and I totally understand. Like, we would go through cottage cheese and just the snack stuff alone would be bad enough. We might buy 3 bags of chips and some cottage cheese and some ice cream and milk and cereal, and in 3 days it's all gone. Because in the evening they would just eat and eat and eat.
Yeah.
They wouldn't eat hardly anything that we would make for dinner, but then in the evening they were, an entire bag of Chex Mix was gone in like a day and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things too, like just not having snack foods.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. The other thing is that now we find ourselves like, it was always hard with some of our friends who didn't have the kids and we couldn't do anything. And now we're kind of in that group where we're like, well, we can go do this, and let's call Tim and Sarah. Well, they got Colby and Connor. Connor's got a soccer game tonight, and Colby's got this going on, or whatever. And so, and we're like, well, shit, what are we gonna do? You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I remember that. First having kids is like, or like when my friends first had kids before I had a kid. I would say, hey, I got an extra ticket to William Elliott Whitmore at the Turf Club. What are you doing? And he's like, I have a kid, man. I can't just leave. I'm like, oh shit, that's right. Like, yeah. And so you're kind of going through that all again, where it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. They have things, and it's not like, well, because I would imagine weekends are weird too, right? Like it's one thing when like you're working all day and the boys would have been doing school or whatever, but like a Saturday morning has to have a very different vibe to it too.
They're home on the weekends now.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah, because we bring them home on the weekends, but they're self-sufficient at that point that we can still go do things or whatever else.
Sure.
Football games have been a little different because they don't really like to go to the games.
Sure.
I mean, they like it, but they'd be perfectly content with staying home. Mm-hmm. But it's not something where we could be in Ames all day long and then be home. I mean, that's just not a good idea.
Sure.
So typically we'll take them with us, or they'll go to a friend's house or something like that for the day or for the evening if it's an evening game or something like that. But
do they have stories for you, or they've just decided they're not telling you? Because I know they were both very excited to kind of like get out and explore on their own.
So we talked about this. Jordan was adamant that he was getting a girlfriend and
oh yeah.
Well, I think Josh is probably quite the ladies' man. We dropped him off a couple weeks ago, and there's three girls in the program, and they live in the same apartment next door to Jordan, but down the hall from Josh, and they constantly will not leave Joshua alone. To the point where we took him to dinner last night, and they had a activity going on at 7. So we went to go have pizza last night, and we pulled in and we dropped them off at the front door of the complex. And as we went around the corner, the 3 girls were waiting at the other door where they normally go in. And when they saw our car, all 3 girls took a dead sprint to the front of the building because they knew we could drop them off there. But Josh said we were having dinner, and I think one of the girls had texted him like 3 times wanting to know when he was going to be done with dinner. And he's like, they will not leave me alone. Like, I'm really good friends. I'm good friends with so-and-so, but this one girl will not leave us alone. She's constantly banging on our door. And I was like, dude, happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I believe that.
But I don't hear as much from Jordan about it. Although he did post on his Instagram a picture with a couple of the RAs, and they were fairly cute. So I think he was pretty happy about that. But it did not take very long for the allure of girls to wear off, because Jordan calls them quite annoying because they will constantly not leave them alone, banging on the door and wanting to talk to them.
Well, one of those things that I always think about when we entrust people in their late teens or early 20s to make decisions. And look, man, this is not me being a grumpy old man, like kids shouldn't have a say or whatever. You're an adult, do whatever. But I'm also not going to necessarily trust an 18-year-old, because I was an 18-year-old once. And I thought talking to 18-year-old girls was fascinating. I don't think I could handle talking to an 18-year-old girl for more than 5 minutes anymore.
No.
So I would just say that Jordan is wise beyond his years, frankly. I would tell Jordan, I also agree. 18-year-old girls are annoying.
I think he has figured it out fairly quickly that he's had enough of that a little bit. Yeah, no kidding.
No, that's awesome.
they're doing well. So and Josh's anxiety is calmed down quite a bit. And although there's been a couple times they've made it to class, so I've swiped on their apps to turn all their apps off, because if they don't make it to class, then I turn all their stuff off on their phones.
Okay, so now this is something I wanted to get into with you tonight. This was another thing, because and certainly I know your boys are in a unique kind of situation, but I was talking with my Lyft driver about parenting in this age versus parenting that like our parents had, right? Like, I know that there's a lot that I could learn from my parents, but there's also a lot that my parents did that I can throw out the window, not because they weren't parents, but because it doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And that comes to, social media or access to these things, or can you imagine? Give me your thoughts on how Melvin would have reacted if he could use an app to check on your performance in college. Because we all know what kind of student you were.
Let's see. We're 52 minutes in. It took you this long to take a shot.
Well, no, I'm not saying anything you haven't already said.
That's true.
And yeah, I'm sorry. How many,
I'm having a hard
years?
time processing. You got to give me a second, because I'm having a hard time even envisioning Dad being able to use a cell phone, let alone know how to turn something off. I mean, I'll just say this. There were plenty of times that I would have to go over and clear my dad's history before my mom came home from a trip. So, and he worked in a computer store and didn't know how to clear his history. So the thought of having access to an app to be able to check my performance.
Let's pretend like he did know how to do that.
I will tell you that it would not have been good. Here's the story. I may have told this story before. The first time that he got online banking. Have I told this story? It was like a day and a half. He had online banking where you could log in and look at your bank account.
Yeah.
Mom came home from Walmart. He met her in the driveway, wanting to know what she spent $75 on. He had went and checked as soon as she went to Walmart and kept refreshing the screen. And he went outside. I was there. And he was like, "What'd you spend $75 on at Walmart?" And my mom was like, "Let me tell you something right fucking now. If that's the way it's going to be with you logging in and checking that, you can unplug that fucking computer right now. I have not answered to you for 30-some years of what I've spent at the store. So unless you want to take your ass to the store and go buy your own fucking groceries, we're not having this conversation."
So I assume your parents, like, because like I still balance a checkbook up until like 15 years ago, like well beyond the time that I needed to balance a checkbook. And like, like people used to always be like, "I don't understand why they don't teach balancing a checkbook in high school." I'm like, because no one fucking is going to need to do that in 5 years. And sure enough, no one does, because
I never balanced my checkbook because it was always wrong. And then I didn't really want to know how much farther in the hole I ever
I was gonna say you never balanced your checkbook just because you were terrible.
I was terrified to find out that I was somewhere off by $200.
But I assume that your mom probably balanced her checkbook. Like, was your mom in charge of the bills?
No, Dad was.
No, Dad was. Okay.
Dad was in charge of the checkbook. Dad was in charge of paying bills and the checkbook.
So then, how did he not already know that she was spending $75 at Walmart?
Because he didn't know at the time. Like, this was instant. They may have had the conversation later when the check came in and he found the checkbook. But I mean, just imagine. I mean, she didn't even get out of the car with the bags, and he was outside wanting to know what he's doing.
Okay. So
now,
that
Melvin
will
go to the store now. Staci will go to the store now and say, I'm gonna go and get shampoo and I don't know, toilet paper.
Yeah.
And she'll be gone for 40 minutes and have 7 sacks.
Yeah.
And I'll be like,
that's just called going into Target. That's what I do every time in Target. But yeah.
I'll be like, Not that I care, because obviously whatever you bought, we're probably going to use.
Yeah. No.
But I'm not
very,
sure how you went from 2 things to 7 bags.
Well,
Now I don't even say anything. It's just a given. And it's not even, but at the early on in the relationship, I was like,
yeah, I mean, you hate it until you realize, oh shit, I am out of toothpaste and deodorant, and Staci goes, no, it's right here in the linen closet, and you're like,
I bought something already.
Okay, because you did think ahead and do all of these things, and I just would have been the idiot that would have gone to work smelling out of my pits and mouth.
I'd have stopped at the
hoping no one
gas station
noticed.
to grab some Quick Trip on the way.
You would have grabbed like mints and an air freshener and rubbed the air freshener under your pits.
Right.
Like one of those pine trees for your car, and just worn that around your neck and be like, this is good enough.
There you go.
Okay, so that Melvin
Dad having
calls it your mom. Pretend that Melvin has access to your college performance.
Well, it would not. I mean, he would definitely be checking every day.
Oh, sure.
He would check it every couple days.
Would he call you out every time, or would he?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he would definitely focus on the negative. If everything was good, it wouldn't be like I'd get a phone call and say, "Hey, checked your grades. You're doing great. Keep it up."
Mm-hmm.
That was not his style.
Yeah.
Because that was expected.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was that. I shouldn't get a pat on the back for doing what I'm fucking supposed to be doing. That was kind of his motto.
Sure. Yeah. And you've mentioned that before, which by the
way,
he
was proud of me, but I mean, just saying, like, I wasn't getting a pat on the back for doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Now, if he'd have saw grade slipping or whatever else, I'd have got a phone call. I'd have got funds cut off for sure. Mm-hmm. He would. It would always be like he might initially be angry, but there was always a reasoning of he wanted me to excel more than he ever could. Sure. So it was always on a disappointment level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because he knew that I was capable of doing so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And it would always have that type of lesson to it. So he may have called me and said, this is bullshit. I'm not paying for this for you to fuck around up there, and you better get your shit together. And to be honest with you, I'm working really hard to give you this opportunity, and I expect you to work just as hard to not disappoint me. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of people that wouldn't have that opportunity. He would put things in perspective like that.
Sure.
And I still kind of live that way today. Last Monday is a perfect example, Tim, when the whole plane thing happened. Not a lot. I could have sat there and been really pissed off that they canceled that flight and been upset and let it get to me. But not a lot of people would have been able to take a trip like that with his wife and enjoy that weekend and have the memories. So that's what I should be happy for, and just do what I got to do to get home. No, it's not an ideal situation,
but it's not the end of the world. You're going to get home eventually. And
right. But look at your blessing of what you could have done. What I had said earlier, he probably would have said, you're lucky that you're in a position that when you had to book another flight, you had that money that you could access and do. There's a lot of people that take trips like that are on a thin budget, that if that would have happened, maybe they wouldn't have had an extra $700 and some dollars laying around that they could have booked another flight. Then what would you have done?
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. I always struggle when shit goes south to remind myself how much worse things could be. I recently, without getting too personal, I had something that happened to me recently that was basically like a tenth as bad if something similar happened to my friend, and it took a hard time for me to kind of bring my perspective back around to be like, oh no, he has it much worse. I mean, when you get caught up in the moment, sometimes it's hard to remember that, and I think that's something that you kind of have to like. It has to be like a trained, learned behavior, and that's where something like what Melvin did for you, it wasn't like to necessarily get you to notice it in the moment, but it was to train you, to train your way of thinking, to train your perspective, to train the way that you approach situations, right? That's something I've learned here recently as a dad is like, I don't have to make things for my daughter right the first time. I just need to help her understand how to tackle them each time. And the more she learns this skill, the more it becomes like this innate thing, right? So the more that Melvin taught you this skill, it's not even a conscious thing at that point. It's more just like it's training a reflex into you. It's training a way that you're going to approach that. Even if you don't get it 9 times out of 10, you're still doing it. And so that 10th time out of 10, it all falls into place.
I forgot about that for the longest time. I forgot what he would teach me because, and I don't know that we've talked a lot about what I like to call the BS era, which was before Staci.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a very happy person. I wasn't a very good person.
You talk about how you didn't have patience and
right, but I also there was a lot of self-pity that I had in my life because I always felt like things were unfair. One of my things that I would say all the time is why does that have to happen to me? Mm-hmm. And I'm just not like that anymore. I mean, I would have dwelled on the negative so much 12, 13, 14 years ago if that would have happened, mm-hmm. rather than focus on the positives that I try to focus on now.
Sure.
And that's a lot of those lessons that Dad taught me. I just didn't take hold because it's a hell of a lot easier to wallow in self-pity than it is to push that down and toughen up really and fight that. And it's funny that we're talking about that because 4 years ago on Monday was the day that I got diagnosed for cancer. Mm-hmm. And if I would have had that mantra 12 years ago, if I would have got cancer 12 years ago and been in that position, I don't know that I would have fought it as well as I did 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You had brought that up on Twitter this week, and I didn't want to let that go without acknowledging, because I think that's one of those things that when you tell your story about that, I don't know that you even acknowledge for yourself kind of just the impact that not dwelling in the negative has, not only for your own well-being but for those around you. Like, I don't want to overly make you into a hero or anything like that, not because you aren't in my eyes, because you absolutely are, but I don't want you to feel like, but I think what you did on having a better attitude made it better for your loved ones as well, right? So it's not just that your attitude, it's not that you didn't just get dragged down by your own attitude, but you didn't drag anyone down with you. And I think that's kind of a type of leadership, I guess, for lack of a better term, that probably taught a better lesson than I think other people realized, and was just more about humility than other people realize as well. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think that probably what I decided that moment was that was an opportunity for me also to make the ultimate sacrifice for my family and for my kids.
Mhm.
In that, as scared as I was and as worried as I was, the ultimate thing that you do as a father is you make sure that your kids and your family and your wife don't feel that.
Mhm.
And that's what I tried to do. I never once gave them an impression that I didn't believe that I was not going to be okay. Privately, in the middle of the night, or after everybody would go to bed, I
You're
was
scared
vulnerable.
shitless.
I was vulnerable and I was scared shitless.
Mhm.
And I would have a lot of deep conversations with myself about what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to, what my legacy was going to be.
Mhm.
Not that I have this huge platform or a huge, it was just a matter of one person at a time. I was going to try to be a better person.
Mhm.
And as superficial as this sounds, Twitter has really helped me with that. That can be a complete cesspool piece of shit app, but that has really helped me developed a lot of relationships with people. Just kindness and people that are good people. And turning some of those negatives into good and things like that. And that's just what the platform was when I decided that I was going to change my outlook on certain things. I use every avenue that I have to express that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of those things because sometimes when you're going through something, you want so desperately for someone to understand what you're going through that you kind of forget that they don't have to. That when you're asking someone to understand what you're going through, what you're really doing is transferring your burden onto them. And so it's such a natural reaction to try to do that, but you don't realize that you're doing that. And so if you can take a step back and say, okay, you know what, man, I'm going to process this here. No one else needs my burden. That is huge. And then to be able to find other avenues to kind of channel that you know challenge and frustration or confusion or whatever into other areas or other people or other ways and spin it into something positive is something that I'm forever humbled by, because I just tend to be a bitter, grumpy curmudgeon. So, I mean, it works for me, but
it's just I don't know how to express it. There's sometimes, like when that anniversary comes up, I even think to myself, do I even need to post about it anymore? Because it doesn't define who I am.
sure.
But then I always think to myself, what if somebody reads that and then reaches out and asks me questions because somebody else is going through the same thing, which has happened.
Yeah, man. I mean, to me, it's never come across as it's never come across as braggadocio or arrogance so much as it's been like sharing your story and inspiring hope. You know what I mean? And or like giving someone an avenue to talk about it too. It's
Right.
like I've been fairly forthcoming on Twitter about my mental health issues and my depression and my anxiety, and it's not because I want anyone to pity me, but it's because I want people to feel comfortable to be able to talk about those things. Right? I don't think we get better. I mean, I don't think we destigmatize shit like that if we're not being clear and open and honest about that. Now, I'm sure I go too far, way too frequently, and I don't want it to be that way. But I think I think good, healthy dialogue, and as much as Twitter is not good, healthy dialogue, as we've talked about before, but at the same time, there's also something, we both have made good friends over Twitter that have friendships that have blossomed beyond Twitter, just because that vulnerability and that honesty helps someone else who's maybe struggling to also be vulnerable and honest. Not to pat ourselves on the back by any means, but I think, the point of this podcast is helping people to just talk through shit, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you can make Twitter or Facebook or any other interaction you have what you need to make it. You can either fall into that trap of being negative, or you can rise above it. And it's hard. It's very hard not to get dragged into the mud.
Mm-hmm. I get dragged down there way too often. I drag other people into it way too often.
I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, so Charlie Brewer, who used to play quarterback for the Baylor Bears,
sure,
went to Utah.
Yep.
Started 3 games for Utah. He got benched, or not. He's not starting.
Yep.
And he left the program. And there's a pretty high-profile person on Twitter that had tweeted out and called him soft. And I was like, listen, are you telling me that a guy that's had multiple concussions, that's played 4 years in college football, soft?
Yeah.
Just now, I mean, I get that you want clicks and likes, but calling somebody that has gone through multiple concussions in a college football environment soft, that's a little pathetic.
When people were calling out Simone Biles in the Olympics a few months ago, I was like, fuck out of here with that garbage.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? What like, first of all, none of those athletes, not a single athlete in the world owes you anything.
Right.
They do not owe you anything. And the fact that 1 billion other people put themselves through hell to make you happy is not admirable. Right? Because at the end of the day, they went through hell. For what? Your admiration? Who cares? That's not worth anything.
It pissed me off because soft is such a... The kid's not soft.
Yeah.
If he was soft, he'd have quit a long time ago.
Sure.
Now, I don't know why he left that team. Maybe he did leave because he was pissed he lost the starting job. But maybe, to somebody else's point that made it, maybe the kid was thinking, well, if I'm not going to start, are concussions really worth it here?
I put my body through a lot.
Right.
I'm obviously not going pro.
Start. Right. So is it time to hang it up? But to call him soft, you can call him anything you want when it comes to leadership, maybe, or being part of a team. But to call him soft physically was out of line, and I called him out on it. And I thought to myself, now I'm probably going to get a lot of heat because this guy's got a lot of followers.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, I got a lot of people that backed me up. And I think I tweeted out last week. I said, let's see, today I have argued with a misogynist. I've argued with some anti-vaxxer, and I've argued with, I don't know, somebody else about something. And one guy, he had tweeted out about a friend of ours that was on the podcast, and it said that she was a puke and that she was looking for likes because she went out without makeup on and whatever. And I was like, are you seriously attacking somebody, a woman, because she was proud that she went outside without makeup on and that empowered her? I was like, you're a fucking douchebag. And I went at him hard. And then he's like, you're not any better than me. You're not, you don't have a moral high ground. Oh, I certainly didn't disparage a woman because of her looks. And the reason you did it was for people to hit that like button so that you could get some validation. That's what that is. And anybody that claims that they don't post anything on Twitter for validation is full of shit. Even I do. If I tweet something out that I think is funny or whatever, of course I want somebody to hit that like button. That's why I'm on the app. So for you to say you're not is total horseshit, and you're a liar.
Yeah.
But you can do it. You can do it in fun, exciting ways to engage people, or you can do it to either make fun of people or at other people's expense. And I ain't got time for that bullshit.
Yeah. You know, part of why I took some time off here. I've taken some serious timeouts here from a lot of social media because I know that I'm contributing, and not just that Twitter's bringing me down, but I'm contributing to it as well. But just for my mental health, to just not be focused on a bunch of people dunking on each other all the time. Like, you know, so my friend Andy, who passed away a couple years ago, we were early adopters to Twitter, and back then all we did was we made jokes about, like, it was really dumb stuff. It was like things a soup spoon would say. It's like, it makes no sense, but it was things that made us giggle and made a couple other people giggle, and that's all it was. It wasn't Twitter at that point wasn't like the source of news. And that's the double-edged sword of Twitter right now, is like, you doom scroll, but at the same time, I feel when I am not on Twitter, I feel more disconnected to what's going on in the world. Because there's not a traditional news medium anymore. The news cycle is so fast that by the time you watch the 10 o'clock news, you're already 5 hours behind. But yeah, I realized I neither needed to participate in or contribute to just the negativity that's out there. And I didn't know a way to contribute to things positively, so I just decided to step away for a while. Man, I don't know. I want to be able to find a better way to engage, but until I figure that out, maybe it's just best to just shut up and sit on the sidelines for once. I don't know.
I kind of have a problem with that. And I'll tell you why. Because if all the good people just sit up and shut up and go to the sidelines, what do we got left? And this leads into something I wanted to talk about anyways, off of Twitter. You and I both saw that video of that fucking nut job in Ankeny who threatened the school board members and telling them where he lives and whatever because they enacted a mask mandate.
Yeah.
And I said to Staci last night, I said, what do you think of the idea if I was to run for school board? And she was like, I would hate it. And I was like, why? She's like, not because I don't think you would do a great job, but because I wouldn't want the shit show that would happen and come at you for being on there. And I said, right. But the problem is that if enough people are afraid to do it and the good people don't do it, what do we got left? And I'm here to tell you, Tim, we're at a crux right now in this country. What's the turnout for a school board election, do you think? 2%?
Maybe.
That's how they get an in. They slide into these local little races and everything else and start wreaking fucking havoc. Could you imagine if a couple of those QAnon fucking crazies got on a school board and what would happen?
Well,
because I don't vote in a school board election and I don't educate myself on who's running.
There is a QAnon crazy on my daughter's school board, and it sucks because I don't live in her district, so I don't even get a vote on that, which sucks. Even more. You're right. Like, and that's something I've had this conversation with my mom, because my mom is like, I don't ever like to talk politics. I don't like to talk politics. I'm happy not knowing what's going on. I'm like, but if enough people just say, well, that's garbage and I don't want to engage with it, the garbage can eventually take over.
Yes.
Right. And so you have to find a way to, like, not get dragged down by the garbage and not get pulled into the garbage, but still address it.
I would have an argument. I used to have an argument with Dad all the time about a family member of ours, and how much every time they lied or pulled some bullshit, I called him on it. And he would be like, why do you do that? Why? He's like, all you do is cause an argument, and all you do is cause friction. And I was like, Dad, somebody has to put a stop to it. If everybody just goes along with it, then they're going to think it's okay. And I just can't do that. I can't let that shit go. If nobody says anything, then they're going to think their behavior is okay, and it's not.
Well, it's like so. JD Schulten today tweeted, "This isn't the Iowa that I grew up in." And two thoughts. One is JD was in high school when Steve King was elected, so it absolutely is the Iowa that you grew up in. But two, it wasn't the Iowa that you grew up in because people weren't emboldened. It's not because those people didn't exist. And the more people get away with shit, the more they get emboldened to do it more. Right? That's what we've learned, right? Like I can't. So the whole Charlottesville thing that happened. What was that? 2018 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole Charlottesville thing would have been, just atrocious and unbelievable 10 years prior, 20 years prior. But because we slowly started to erode away at what was scandalous and what was radical and what was whatever, that it started to slowly normalize shittiness to the point where people felt like, no, what we feel is a perfectly valid viewpoint. You know, I mean, we fought a whole war over the fact that like Nazis are bad, and now we're sitting here again having to be like, well, let's both sides of this. Well, no. This is settled. This is shitty behavior. But when we don't get into once you don't get into some of that, then it starts to get you're just allowing that stuff to happen again. So I do see what you're saying, and so I think maybe, I guess, the lesson for me is don't get dragged into it or get dragged down by it, but still be a voice for something different.
Right. No, that's 100%. And they certainly aren't afraid to stand up and talk about what they believe is right.
Yeah.
So I'll be damned if I'm going to back off. And I think sometimes, Staci, it bothers Staci a little bit that I'm so outspoken about that stuff, but I just deeply in my heart believe that when things are wrong, I can't let them go by. I've been like that my entire life. When I think something is wrong or I think something needs to be called out, I just can't let it go, to the point where I there's a lot of people on Facebook that I'm friends with that I've had to unfollow so that I don't get engaged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and there's certainly a little bit of picking your battles too, right? Like
yes.
there's some people you just don't have to engage. You're not going to convert everyone, and don't waste your energy on all of the little. Don't waste your energy on it all. Focus your energy on something good.
Well, and it's certain people for me. It's certain people for me.
Yeah.
I have a couple nephews that don't see eye to eye with me on politics, but I don't unfollow them because I love them. I know they're good people. It's okay for us to have differences. We don't ever argue. We don't ever scream and you know what I mean? We just don't. There's some other family members, they're so outside of the bounds that I just have to unfollow them because I cannot. The crazy conspiracy bullshit that they post on a daily basis, it fathoms the mind that I just can't deal with it. I just can't. So, and Melvin did not raise somebody to just turn a blind eye.
Well, yeah, I mean, he certainly doesn't seem like someone who would have been shy with an opinion.
He did not. If you could wrap up a sentence use a sentence to describe a man, that would be it. He was not shy about letting people know what he knew or what he thought. That's for sure.
Oh, well, good. Well, shoot, Chris, we're probably about out of time. One thing I want to make sure we talk about is the new title sponsor for the Tailgate Society.
Yes.
Friend of the podcast, friend of yours.
Yes.
Really excited to have him on. Revelton Distillery, Rob and his team have decided to throw their name on our humble little website. I'm sure you've talked to him about this.
I have.
Does he know what he's getting himself into?
Well, I mean, he was on the podcast. He's listened to us, so he knows how shit crazy we are. So, and yet he still felt the need to stick his name of his wonderful company on our website. Now, Rob and his wife Christy own Revelton Distillery in Osceola. So it's actually right across from I-35 from the casino. So one side of I-35 is the casino. The other side is Revelton's distillery. But you can pick it up in any local Fairway and Hy-Vee and local spirit shops. They've got a great honey infused whiskey and vodka. They have an unbelievable mulberry gin. They also have a cream liqueur that we use in coffee and things like that. I've been drinking the honey whiskey tonight. And I think they're a year and a half away from some bourbon, which I'm super excited to try. So
yeah, I'm very excited about that. I've been even using the cream liqueur. Actually, I'm out now. But that was a nice kind of Saturday morning little treat. Brunching at home in my coffee. It was perfect.
Well, I lost a bet to my nephew on the Iowa State game, and the bet was we have to send each other a local bottle of whiskey. So he'll be getting a bottle of the honey flavored whiskey, and Matt, their vice president, came out to the tailgate for the Iowa game and dropped off a couple bottles for all of us to enjoy. So that was great. But I highly encourage everybody to check him out. Local kid, grew up on the south side of Des Moines, him and his wife, and have just done wonderful things, and we're super excited to have him on board.
Yeah, man, I think we had talked about it with Rob on the podcast, as well as others. I think a spirits company really can't get a better sponsor for the Tailgate Society. Not that everything has to do with drinking over at our humble little site, but we certainly have enough podcasts and articles discussing that. I mean, it is called the Tailgate Society, and you can't have a tailgate without having a few cocktails for sure. But I'm excited to see how this relationship develops, and maybe we can get back. We've talked about maybe getting down and going and seeing Rob and talking with him again. I mean, that guy certainly dropped some parental life lesson truth bombs on us that night for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but. We've got a whole lot of exciting things going on at the Tailgate Society. I think football season is really kind of where we hit our stride again. I think people get really, really excited for talking not just college, professional as well, but man, I think a lot of us contributors over at TGS get really excited about this time of year. So you see a lot of renewed energy. A lot of other great things going on. I was talking with our friend Aaron, my co-host at Bitter Units, about maybe a guest appearance on another one of the Tailgate Society podcasts that he's going to be on, that I've already kind of jumped down a rabbit hole today, so I can't wait for that to come out. We're constantly churning out new content. Do you have anything else in the hopper, or anything else you're thinking of for maybe a sneak peek here?
Well, we are. I know that the newest member, Mackenzie Duffy, who is Caitlin's friend, she's new on the team, and she's a big hockey girl. So I think they've got some stuff in the works. I've tried to talk her and Caitlin into doing a podcast where she just basically teaches Caitlin hockey and brings her on as a brand new fan, which I think would be pretty funny. But
as a Minnesotan, I would appreciate that, and I would love to be able to laugh at Caitlin as much as she laughed at me for not knowing slang.
But I don't have too much in the works. I know that we're still kind of have had some discussions with Marcus Pfizer about another podcast with him, strictly in a sports debate style, kind of a pro versus Joe type of thing. Clearly, I am not the pro, although if you look at my body of work, I don't know why anybody would think different, but
yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, so many other good things out. So please go ahead and check us out at thetailgatesociety.com. I should have this up in front of me. It's T-Gate Society at Twitter. I don't remember the Instagram. I am on Instagram in theory. I don't know how much in practice. I'm on Instagram. Which is why
I'm on TikTok though. We're on TikTok though. It's on TikTok. You know, we got a video that's like got over 600,000 views. It's me mishitting a golf ball, but
I'm glad I do not contribute to this TikTok.
Oh, it's so bad. The shit that goes viral, it's so bad.
Oh, excellent. Well, shoot, I think we're at about it. Chris, is there anything else you kind of wanted to touch on, plug, anything else?
Just keep listening. We're going to try to get back to our roots, I think, and do more of this. I know we've had a lot of guests on lately, but we get back to our roots and talking about current events and things like that. And, you know, if you guys have any ideas and you wanted us to talk about, shoot us a message and we'll be happy to ring it in. So,
yeah, absolutely. Please reach out to us, strength_old on Twitter, or SciGrad or Tim Johnson MN. Please tell us what you want to hear, what you're liking, what you're not. I will always take any type of mockery of Chris that you want to share. Our friend
There's
Bill,
no shortage of material there.
Our friend Bill has not been shy about sharing any of that, and it makes
Bill is
me
never coming on, by the way.
I was just gonna say we need to have Bill on. That would be you know what's gonna happen is someday I'm gonna be hanging out with Bill in St. Louis, or he's gonna be up here in Minnesota or whatever, and I'll make sure we record one of those nights and sneak him on.
You fuckers just need to meet in the middle here in Des Moines, and we'll just all record together.
We do. Some of my best nights with Bill were in Des Moines, so I think that would be perfect. I think that would be fun. Excellent. Well, once again, you have. I'm not gonna say that you wasted your time with this. I hope that you've enjoyed or learned or laughed with or at us on another hour and change of Old Man Strength. I am, again, Tim Johnson, joined, as always, by Chris Shipley. Please check us out once again, strength_old, and at the Tailgate Society at thetailgatesociety.com. This has been Old Man Strength, and we will see you guys next time.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin.